Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Friday Fix. Looks like we made it. Yes, it's finally Friday. Yes, I can sing like an angel. Thanks for asking. You join me as usual with the AlphaPicks team, the magnificent AlphaPicks team, who will be giving us the rundown on the major themes and moves and etc. that we've experienced in this very volatile week. Lots of central banking news. As usual, though, before we start, I'll get the legals out of the way so I don't get a slap on the wrist. Nothing discussed on the space session constitute trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PiQ, AlphaPicks, or indeed anyone that you hear speaking, including myself, Alex, and Jesse. But good morning, gents. Afternoon, even.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Fortunately, after the slight technical issues last week, everything seems to be working fantastic. And I come to you again from my Ray-Ban Meta glasses, although slightly disappointing because keeping us off.
You hang on, whoa, you just told me to go buy a pair this morning. What's going on here?
No, I think they're fantastic. I do think they're fantastic. But our mutual friend, Mr. Mark Zuckerberg, at his annual conference,
the Zuck,
the Zuck, he announced a new version of them, an upgraded version, and interesting because they're basically integrating AI even further into the glasses. They're going to have a sort of like heads-up display, et cetera, and they're going to be put under the new super intelligence group. So basically they said they can roll out features on these glasses going forward. So
like independently from the main like kind of product roadmap of Meta itself, it's going to be like a sort.
Yes. So I think you could see some funky little features that they might try out on this. The only question I would say, and this is for the people, is that the new glasses are priced at basically $800.
Basically double the amount, right?
Basically double the amount, and it's like you still need a smartphone to pair with them. So it's kind of like, it's basically double the price of, you need a smartphone and you need these glasses. So yeah, I'll be interested to see what the take-up goes. But it's similar to sort of Apple and their new iPhones. We're talking, you look at the new iPhones priced at, they can go up to like $2,000 sterling. So it's like, is tech in this zone now where the pricing is slightly run away from fair value? I don't know.
Potentially, but I think, the thing is that, the rollout is so, the product cycle so short. They give it, as we've already experienced here, 6 months there'll be a new one, and it'll be, maybe the same price, but then the older one becomes a little bit cheaper. So as long as you're willing to, be 6-8 months or even a year behind the product curve, and a lot of this stuff is on software anyway. So you're just talking about the hardware being 12 months behind or 6 months behind. You can get decent rates. It's like an iPhone now. If you're willing to get a generation or two older iPhone, the price comes down dramatically. So I think if you got mugs willing to queue up outside the shop, you can charge what you like still. But for the rest of us, we don't mind waiting.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that was another headline I saw from Reuters this morning, that obviously with the iPhone 17 launch in shops, there was long queues in China and Beijing, and also in India, where there was scuffles breaking out, which is very reminiscent of where we were 10 years ago. But potentially an early sign that, the iPhone 17 launch is still drawing interest from people given those queues. We'll see what it's like here in the UK, but I mean, that early signs, if queues outside Apple shops are anything to go by, is an indication that people do still have not only disposable income, but also the desire to have the latest goods.
On this, I know, we're not, this whole show isn't going to be about Apple glasses, don't worry. Or Meta glasses even. But Tom's on the call. I can see him. I can't hear him, obviously, but I can see him listening in live, which is good because he's going to buy me a pint later. But he raised a very good point, on Twitter and also with me, that, Zuck was getting a lot of shit for this live, demo, this live kind of launch, not going particularly well, but at least they had the bollocks to do a live launch of a product. And I think, when you're that confident in your product that you are willing to do that, I think, that's a positive for the company. Again, I think this is the way forward for stuff like this. It's not like, as opposed to you've got Elon Musk that's genuinely dressing people up to look like a robot to launch their robot. At least that's putting it on the line or, but I've got a lot of time for that. But anyway, enough about Meta.
Yeah, enough about Meta and Apple on their product releases. I wanted to stay with tech though, with the UK, the tech prosperity deal between Mr. President Donald Trump
Yeah.
and Starmer. Now, I think I already know where you stand on this, Ryan, but I think I think
Oh,
if
Alex,
anyone
you know me too well.
I know you too well. Obviously, for anyone who's been living under a bush for the past week, essentially we've had a host of. I mean, I saw the number quoted at $42 billion that everyone from Microsoft, Nvidia, OpenAI, Alphabet, etc., have basically pledged in terms of AI infrastructure, quantum computing, and a few other bits and bobs for the UK. Now, I mean, from my perspective, like the headline numbers are great, the pledges are great. From what I can see in terms of the where this is heading to, most of it is in developing AI infrastructure in the UK. Some of it, like on some of the Google stuff, is actually going to be invested in like jobs in terms of like their DeepMind unit, growing headcount here in the UK for that angle. But for the most part, it's like building out multi-year deals into infrastructure. Yeah, it's good, but it's kind of like, they're going to be building out infrastructure somewhere around the world. I don't really see that as a material win for actually
Right.
breeding AI intelligence,
Yeah.
out of the UK.
So a couple
Um,
of so again, I'm glad you raised that point, or literally, or glanced on at least that point of they're going to be doing a lot of these companies are doing this anyway. A lot of these companies, are investing in the UK because it's geographically situated in a great position. But without a lot of the EU kind of red tape that, and also a lot of big tech as well is they are kind of catching on to the fact that every time the EU needs a couple of extra 100 million, who they look for, they look to fine, US big tech, via an antitrust case. So this is, in my opinion, this is stuff that, humble opinion, that would have been getting invested anyway. In Europe, the reason why it's not in the EU is because a lot of these companies hate the EU for what they're doing in the antitrust space. So it's going to land in the UK anyway. But what they've done with the Trump administration, because big tech wants to make sure Trump looks good, because the better that big tech can make Trump look, the better it is for big tech. So that's why they're bundled it up into one big package. Two things on this, though, are words of warning, or three, I guess. One, nothing is signed. There's no agreement. There's no check wrote from anyone yet. Two, electricity prices are very, very prohibitive to everything that's being announced, which makes me think either they've not been told the price of electric, or they're playing a longer game and thinking some of these massive, giga centers and whatever the kids are calling these big units, etc. Now, either they think it's going to take so long for these to come online anyway that they will. Sorry, Tom's just messaged me. They will basically, they're kind of front running the fact that energy prices will come down, maybe due to a new government or Ed Miliband being kicked out. Fingers crossed, touch wood. Um, I don't know. It's just there's a lot going on here, and again, nothing is signed, nothing is in the bank until it's delivered. So I do think
mm,
it's a lot of it is just allowing politicians to say how great we are. Look at the deal we just got. But
mm,
yeah,
yeah, and
I'd rather be judging the economy and the state of the finances on actual data. And if we look at that, which I'm sure we'll brush on in a bit, that ain't great for the UK, especially after today's borrowing figures.
mm, yeah, and in terms of Jay, I didn't know if you wanted to come in on this UK AI, but also slightly more broadly on China AI in terms of China tech
China,
bringing
China.
China, which I
Yeah,
know you wrote about. You want to come in on that?
yeah. So, I mean, it does tie into what you were saying about the kind of UK and EU, and something I've been mulling over the part, well, kind of as I was writing the article earlier in the week, and then since the UK news came out, China's really pivoted. That they were very anti-trust on their tech companies. Didn't kind of have any policy support for them, but that has turned around. And Xi and China are trying to support their tech industry, knowing that they can't rely on the US, and they need to kind of develop their own products to be competitive with the US. I do wonder if the EU at some point will have to ease up on tech, because if they're the only major area that's still like got all of this antitrust going on, like, yeah, I mean, I wonder what your thoughts are. Do you think with China easing up and how strong the US is, that we're going to see EU ease up?
I doubt it purely because there's too many people playing. There's too many cooks in the in the kitchen in
Yeah.
the EU. I think they can't turn as quickly as we saw today. This week, head of ESMA, so like the European Exchange Securities Exchange kind of whatever they call authority. We had someone from there, an official from there, turn around and say, "We wish we were as nimble as the UK." Which is it's an interesting thing for an EU official to say. I'll take it, especially when you're pointing to the Bank of England as a kind of a bastion of nimbleness, which must show how bad things are at ESMA. But no, I think you're right in terms of we are seeing a slight pivot or like a slight shift, but I do think the EU will be the last to pick this up because again, there's just too many kind of authoritarians in there that just want complete control over everything. And funny enough, this brings back to what Tom did send me just now, which is my new favourite buzzword that I've just learned today: sovereign clouds. Basically,
Ooh.
these huge data centers and whatnot are having to build infrastructure in different regions because those regions, they're almost playing a regulatory game, which is, these regions and stuff have such like different concerns about data. They don't want their data leaving and going to different geographic regions. So it's an
Ooh.
interesting one to think about as well.
Sovereign cloud.
Ah,
Yeah.
That
exactly
That's
is
right.
very interesting.
fantastic.
Well, this is why when he texted me when I was mid conversation, it threw me. I'm like, what the fuck is a sovereign cloud?
That's going to be
That's juicy.
my
Yeah.
weekend reading. I'm going to message Tom about
Yeah.
that.
Well, I'm down the pub with Tom later on, so you're welcome to join.
Yeah, yeah. It gets a lot more clarity after a few pints, sovereign cloud,
Well, that's
doesn't
one word for it. I'll give you a clue.
it? And the last thing I'll say on this, with the China take and US take, is that Nvidia's H2O, which is the basically the best chip they're allowed to sell into China, on off. Alibaba's newest chip that's come out or is coming out is reportedly on par with the performance of Nvidia's one, and that really matters because it's kind of like if China have a chip that's basically as good as the one Nvidia can import, then it does give them a real sort of leverage when it comes to
Yeah,
either trade talks with the US or even
yeah,
just basically being like, Nvidia, you're done, you're out of here. We can rely on our sort of more
yeah.
homegrown talent.
I do think there will always be a room for other kind of chip manufacturers. They don't want to, no one, no matter, even if you're the Chinese government, you don't want to rely on one manufacturer. And I think that's the crux of a lot of this. I would actually say the most important news on the China chip front that I've heard this week, not to say what you said isn't important, but apparently they've made some huge advances, and I'm going to butcher the word, I apologize, but on a domestic lithography machine or whatever it is, the machine that makes the chips, basically, the machine
Mm.
that the machine that makes the machine that makes the chips, where it's, what is it, ASML or whoever company are in Holland that have basically the monopoly on this. And that's been touted as one of the reasons why China can't get a domestic chip industry off the ground. Apparently, they're making some decent moves into this space now, which, again, if they can start, really kind of at the picks and shovels stage of the operation, that could be a bit of a game changer going forward. But I do think the interesting thing that we've seen is, China have completely, and this goes back into the antitrust space a little bit. So again, apologies for this, but we did see a seismic shift this week from China, basically dropping cases against Google and whatnot to then kind of say, oh, we're actually going to pick up on a case from about 4 years ago with Nvidia. So again, I think it ties in nicely. All of this ties in nicely that potentially a thawing of trade relations with, a warming up, of trade relations with the US. And I do think that they're still only throwing the Nvidia name out there just so it doesn't look like they've backed down completely, because the case that they're referring to with Nvidia is pretty much a done and dusted case anyway.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, very valid. Yeah, yeah. Now, whilst we're on the talk of China and the US, can anyone tell me which sector has also been in the limelight? Well, very niche sector um, in agriculture this week, which is a kind of contender for sort of stat attack of the week.
I mean,
Pigs.
yeah, I have no clue. I feel
I'm
like
going to say, because I think there's been agricultural sector. Say it again?
Yeah,
Agricultural sector in China, right?
yeah.
If I've been listening to Angie for the grain market blast every day at 2:45 London time, be there or be square. She's mentioned this week. I'm sure she's mentioned sows, so female pigs, about they were looking to cut down their herd, which is like a very small, that's never happens. But I might be well off. but
I mean,
I'm going to go for it.
it's a great one. I don't know that's thinking. So
Is that
that's
too
not the
niche?
one I
I'm too
saw,
niche, aren't I? I'm
but
too niche.
but I mean that could be valid. I'm sure it is. The one I saw was soybeans.
Oh,
Okay.
that's not niche. Soybeans is huge. Oh, I overthought it. Oh, I basically
um,
just like my Tinder profile. I went too niche.
Too niche, too niche. So China, the world's largest soybean buyer, hasn't
Yep.
bought any from the US this season for the first time since at least the 1990s. Okay.
So on this, well, there has been some undisclosed buyer purchases that might have gone to China, and I only know this
Ooh,
from the
okay.
Green Market Blast. And yeah, they obviously they've been getting them from Brazil and whatnot because it's just fine, cheapest ones. Although the ones they are buying from the likes of Brazil and that, apparently, again, I'm no expert. Tune in at 2:45 to listen to the expert. They don't store as well and stuff like that, so it's more of a short-term play. And
Ooh,
also
okay.
that does feed into that. A lot of soybeans go into pig feed, basically animal feed. And that's related to that is the fact they are cutting down potentially their head of pigs, which believe it or not, in China they actually have a strategic pig reserve.
Mm,
So yeah, but you're right, it is something that's definitely going to be weighing on people in Washington. But again, the moment we see these first disclosed buys, we could see a bit of a shake-up in the ag space.
good clarification. Thanks. So
You're welcome.
yeah. But so that'll be an interesting one to watch. And obviously Trump and he are due to talk today, aren't they?
Oh yes, I completely forgot about that. Well put.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I mean, obviously, I don't think the market's sort of hanging on it, but yeah, we'll see what comes out from them. Which actually leads on. I was talking about Trump and Xi with TikTok, and
Yes,
interestingly, the one where Oracle are basically, what Oracle and a slight sort of consortium are basically in there, they reckon, to
Big
have
Larry.
wrapped it up, Big Lazar. And because I was trying to mull over that if Oracle, because obviously Oracle shares have already bid up slightly this week on rumors that they are going to basically get it. My thing is that when you actually think about it, I don't really know if this is a buy the rumor, sell the fact scenario, because how much of a benefit for Oracle, who are already like pivoting, they seem to be pivoting every week as to what Oracle actually does. Like, how much intrinsic value to the stock does owning the US operations of TikTok bring? I don't really think it's a huge deal personally.
Well,
Unless it's
again,
just data.
yeah, exactly.
Valuable.
Jesse said exactly what I was about to say. Go on, Jesse.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you've got data, then your AI is going to be pretty good. It's a similar story
Exactly.
with Reddit of that was kind of written off as an AI play, but think of how much data they have of human interactions over however many years Reddit's been
Trends,
going.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think Jesse's nailed it. I think this is basically probably a longer term play, just on the fact that how much data they can be gathering, and pretty much all the technology coming down the pipe now relies on human data to power it in some shape or form. I think if you've got the keys to the data castle and you're in the right sovereign cloud, I think you're laughing. So yeah, we do know. Yeah, Oracle have built. Larry, Big Lazar, richest man in the world right now, based on data. Let's be honest. When it comes down to it, but data handling, data storage, etc., etc. So if anyone knows the benefits of something like this in terms of data, it will be the big man.
It's true.
But
No,
I see what you're saying. On paper, you're like, well, why is he buying a thing that was just loads of videos of people dancing? But I do think Jesse's spot on. I think this is just a data play.
yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, I think it's a great point by Jay. I think in terms of how you price that, though, i.e., the value of that data, is where does that put Oracle stock, 2 weeks down the line on confirmation or a year down the line? Like, I
I
don't
couldn't tell
know.
you I couldn't tell you where it puts in 10 minutes, let alone
Yeah, yeah.
wow.
But you know what I mean? Like, intrinsically, yeah, like in theory, they have this data. That's going to be great for them for whatever they plan on doing. But like I'm interested to see like what dollar value people put on the value of that data, which could or might not result in benefits for their AI innovation years down the line.
I would love to be able to give you an answer there, my friend.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
So if anyone out there does have an answer, please don't put
please
it
let me know.
publicly. Just send it to us privately, and
Please,
you'll see it.
yeah, please write to us. the last one I want to talk about was the Fed meeting, which actually seems already like an eternity ago, but was
Oh
only
God,
Wednesday
you know what?
night.
I forgot it was this week.
Yeah, I know. It kind of, there's a lot of hype up around it. And, we got the kind of obvious things out of the way. But obviously, and actually, Ryan, why don't you tell us which Fed governor follows PIQ on X?
Big Steve.
Big Steve. Stephen Rush.
Stevie M. Stevie M.
Yeah,
Well, we did,
yeah.
but then I did post a few memes about him, and I forgot he followed me. So
Ah,
I've not checked. In my head, he still follows me, and I'm not going to check because if I find out he's dumped me, I'm going to be distraught like Michael Brown was.
yeah. It's
Um,
true. It's true.
but Big Steve, putting his balls on the line. The big dog walks into the meeting, slaps it out, puts it on the table. 50 basis point cut, please.
Yeah,
Stamping his authority. He's like, he's like the alpha dog going in and weeing up the lamppost in front of everyone,
yeah. He
looking
is.
at Pow directly in the eyes as he's doing it.
Yeah. As
Just
he
to
writes
confirm, this is
Big
all a joke.
Steve.
I actually think it's ridiculous what he did, but just in case he's listening, love you, big man.
I'd love to know, you know what I mean? They're just like, Power's like, okay, can everyone put their hand up? If you want, we'll start at no cut, and then we'll go, and he's like, anyone for 50? And then Big Steve's like, hand goes up. It's like,
Both hands,
fucking hell.
both.
Both hands. Yeah. 100 bid.
Sake of you, slag.
David, yeah. So I think the interesting thing beyond the obvious stuff that I would sort of look at is that the 2026 outlook from the dot plot is a lot more sort of uncertain, should we say.
Very much
So
so.
I think basically that's what everyone's looking to now in terms of, H1 2026. Do we see one cut? Do we see three cuts? Where does that land? Because I think it looks fairly obvious now that, we're basically going to get a couple more cuts through to year end, and then it's basically head into 2026.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'd say. And then the broader picture, which we'll probably talk about for months to come, is,
Yeah.
Big Steve laid down the marker with 50 bips. Powell goes next spring. Are we basically going to start to see that shift of a Trump
Yeah.
indirect
I
push
think
actually
so.
becoming more manifest next year?
Yeah. I think that's exactly the way it's going to go. And again, it's another, as Michael and myself has mentioned a couple of times this week, just more lube for going higher, right? Path of least resistance is pretty much always higher, even more so now. Cutting into potentially growth. I know the jury's out on that one. I do not know why anyone would not be long at this point. Well, no investment or trading advice, obviously, but I don't know why anyone would want to be net short in conditions like this. I think it'd be madness, to be honest.
And on this, Jay has the stat attack of the week.
Go on.
Okay.
You got it, Hannah? Do you want me to get it?
Yeah, I can go through it. Obviously, Alex knows this one. But yesterday, all four of the US... I thought that was my phone. Yesterday, all four of the US indices, the main ones, so the Dow, S&P, Nasdaq, and Russell, all hit all-time high. How many times has this happened in the last century? They all hit an all-time high on the same day.
Even if you weren't listening to Morning Blast, say you were, because Michael raised this morning, but
Okay.
I wonder how often that... No, but he didn't have the answer. So I was asking to make...
So
and he was like, if anyone's got the answer, let us know.
I read this in Bloomberg's market wrap.
Shut up. Just make sure... Just tell us you were listening to the Morning Blast, for fuck's sake. Right. What was the thing again? So, right, when was the last time it happened, did you say?
How many times in the last 100 years have all four indices hit an all-time high at the same day?
15.
Not bad. 25 times in the past 100 years.
You didn't give Alex a chance to answer.
Oh, he knew it. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, in that case, I'm really chuffed with myself.
No, I think that's a pretty good guess, Ryan.
No, well, thank you. I'll take it, mate. Thank you. I felt a virtual pat on the head there. Appreciated.
I realise Alex has just dropped to listener.
Oh, hang on. Let me just quickly add him back. Speakers.
He's here.
Oh, okay.
That your jingle threw me off.
Sorry, what? Did you put the phone down and see who's calling you?
You thought it was that person for the run earlier.
It's a good start, eh?
I love that stat. Cool. Okay. Well, look, okay, so we're wrapping up, I guess, because you said that was last one. But I do want to flag before we do go. We just need to take a moment maybe pour one out for the UK fiscal situation of after this morning's. Or was he on his glasses again? Is that what the noise is, or was that Jeffy? Is that you? Um, but yeah, the UK fiscal situation. So much for being fiscally responsible and cutting down borrowing, etc. There's a few good charts out there that kind of that have been raised today due to today's awful borrowing figures. Basically, since the day that Labour took over, borrowing has gone up like almost to the day, and it's got worse every day. For the last month's borrowing, we were 50% out of expectation. They were 50% overspend, which to do that in 1 month, we're talking at COVID level borrowing right now. And I'm just gobsmacked about how this is happening, or how this has been allowed to happen. How Rachel Reeves has still got a job. Yeah, but maybe it's the bet of the devil, But I'm deeply concerned about the state of UK finances, as which anyone in the UK, I think we all should be. What are your thoughts? What's your hot takes before we
Yeah,
go?
Yeah, I concur. It's yeah, not looking great.
It's not. I think that's a very
yeah,
polite way of putting it's an absolute shit show. We'll leave the swearing to
yeah.
me.
I think, I think the fact that it's basically, for me, the standout was that it's the highest level in 5 years, which, as you rightly put, takes us back to COVID.
It's
And it's
madness.
just there, like, the injection that was needed during COVID and the pandemic was meant to be a black swan event that would obviously correct, and as everything else has corrected, fiscally, that should have corrected as well in terms of the public
Yeah.
finances, because in theory, we shouldn't be supporting the economy to the same extent as we were needing to
It's not even
during
supporting the
the
economy,
pandemic.
though, is it? That's the thing. Is supporting, paying off debt. Is supporting welfare increase. Like it's what, as I said to Michael this morning. I think it was Michael this morning. I spoke to about it. We're financing kind of things that it's just wasted cash. Like as soon as we spent it, it's disappeared. I was talking to my friend Tom, or we all know Tom, Tom Wiseman. If this was investment going into infrastructure, I could understand it because we're building something. It's something that's going to add value. But all the money that's being wasted at the moment, none of it's adding value, and that's the thing I can't get my head around. Yeah, we're not.
Mm,
They're not borrowing to drive growth. It,
mm,
it's complete shower of shit. And also, a lot of this rests on the fact that potentially the majority of Labour, there's almost too many Labour MPs, because hundreds of them on the backbenches are just voting against any type of welfare cuts or any type of cuts, no matter what they are, which puts us puts us in this position. And it is
mm,
truly unsustainable. Yet no one likes having to cut. We would all wish there was unlimited money, but there isn't. And the sooner that politicians understand that, or at least accept that, we're fucked.
mm,
Unfortunately, say reform come in next, I'm sure they will make some difficult decisions. It will look really badly on them, but difficult decisions must be made, or else our children, our grandchildren are truly, truly fucked, because it will not go on forever. And it feels like we're getting like very, very close to to some very, very dodgy things happening fiscally.
mm. Yeah, I mean,
On
yeah,
that
it's very
bright
true.
note,
I say, yeah, on that point, no. I mean, yeah, I think that the lead on is then come the budget is, what size of, I mean, I saw one figure at like 30 billion that the taxes need to be raised in the autumn
yeah.
to still keep that 10 billion headroom. So I
But
think,
here's
the
one
next
for you.
stage is where do we go from here? Yeah.
I think some serious, the Bank of England, independent. Why isn't the Treasury independent? Because these decisions that Treasury departments make, the borrowing that Treasury departments do, and whatnot, this isn't just impacts government, impacts the country for the length of the term that particular party's in power. And this is the problem we have. Every party wants to show that they've pumped loads of money into the economy and got great success, but no one wants to pay the bill, which is why it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And any government that comes in that go, the adults are in charge now, we're going to make some very hard decisions, but we need to do them. They'll get voted out next time because so many people are like, oh, well, that was really shit. That was a shit 4 years. Nothing, we paid down debt. Well, unfortunately,
Mm,
if you're adults, you've got to do that occasionally. You've got to pay off your credit card. So I think there's a serious, it won't happen in my lifetime, but I would love to see the Treasury Department in some shape or form be independent and have a longer time frame or longer scope than you know, the current administration. Is it too much to
mm.
ask?
Or, even more crazily enough, some of the Bank of England independence gets temporarily revoked and some form of like yield curve control for the long end comes in. So the government actually control and lower long-term borrowing rates. How about
Well,
that?
again, but the thing is, I think as soon as you get into trying to control markets, you're pissing up the wall. I'd much
Mm,
rather a structure be put in place where borrowing, spending, etc., there's just guidelines. Say like, whoever comes in, you've got this amount of money to spend, or you need to put this amount of money into this or that. How you do that is that's your policies. How you divvy up the money that we give you, that's up to you. And what you focus on, that's up to you. That's policy. That's what governments do. But in terms of how much pocket money you're getting, that's down to us, and we're independent based on
mm,
what we need to do fiscally to keep the UK afloat. I think that's how it
mm,
should be done going forward.
mm.
That
Well,
might be my new focus. I think everyone's come around to ADP being far superior to NFP, so I need a new